A frame hangs empty, not because its painting was lost, but because it was taken. Behind that absence was a family, a home, and a name the thieves tried to erase. Across Nazi-occupied Europe, art, books, furniture, religious objects, and private collections were seized through persecution, forced sale, and organized confiscation. The objects traveled by rail and truck. The paperwork traveled with them, and somewhere in the mountains, the evidence disappeared underground. Scene 2, title and introduction time, 0:45 to 1:10. This was not random wartime theft. It was cultural plunder carried out through a network of Nazi offices, party organizations, dealers, and military authorities. This is the story of how Europe was catalogued, stripped, and hidden. On-screen title, The Hunt for Hitler's Stolen Treasures, Episode 1, The Greatest Theft in History. Scene 3, Before the Storm Time, 0:10 to 0:10. Before the war, Europe's cultural life did not belong only to museums. Paintings hung in apartments. Libraries were assembled across generations. Dealers, collectors, scholars, and artists helped shape modern European culture. Jewish families were central to that world. When the Nazis came to power in Germany, persecution reached property as well as people. Businesses were coerced from Jewish ownership, collections were sold under pressure, blocked by discriminatory laws, or confiscated outright. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939 and then occupied much of Western Europe, that machinery expanded. Cultural theft became part of a wider campaign of dispossession, deportation, and murder. The art cannot be separated from the Holocaust. Every inventory number may conceal the story of an owner who was driven out or did not survive. Scene 4, The Machine of Plunder Time, 0:10 to 03:20. The operation was vast, but it was not a single office following one simple chain of command. Different agencies acted in different territories and at different times. Among the most notorious was the Einsatzstab Reichsleiter Rosenberg, the ERR. Created under Nazi ideologue Alfred Rosenberg, it became a major instrument for seizing Jewish-owned collections in occupied Western Europe. It stashed photographed objects, assigned codes, prepared cards, and assembled albums. The bureaucracy was not incidental. Documentation turned private lives into controlled assets. Senior Nazi leaders competed for masterpieces. Adolf Hitler selected works for a planned museum in Linz. Hermann Goering repeatedly chose objects for his own collection. The thieves recorded what they stole because those records helped them divide, transport, and display the spoils. Scene 5, The Jeu de Paume and Rose Valland, time 03:20 to 0:45. The Jeu de Paume Museum became a sorting center for thousands of objects taken mainly from Jewish collections. Paintings arrived, were classified, photographed, and prepared for shipment. Goering visited repeatedly to make selections. Inside the building worked Rose Valland, a French museum employee and member of the resistance. She concealed her knowledge of German, observed the operation, and secretly recorded destinations, names, and shipment details. Her work was dangerous and patient. She could not stop the seizures taking place in front of her, but she could preserve a trail. Information she gathered would later help Allied investigators locate repositories and identify stolen collections. In a system built on erasure, watching became an act of resistance. Scene 6, A Painting Becomes a File, time 4:45 to 6:05. Follow the process not as the biography of one particular painting, but as a pattern repeated across occupied Europe. First, a home was sealed or emptied, an object was listed, a collection name became a code, at a depot specialists judged value and ownership. A photograph was attached to a card, a crate number linked the object to a shipment. Some works were reserved for Hitler, some went to Goering, others entered the art market, were exchanged, or were sold abroad. Works the regime dismissed as undesirable could still be traded for money or exchanged for art it preferred. The result was a deliberate attack on ownership and memory. A painting was no longer recorded as belonging to a person. It became a file, a category, and a destination. Scene 7, Europe emptied, time 6:05 to 7:30. The ERR was only part of the picture. State authorities, military units, occupation administrations, the Gestapo, dealers, and collaborating institutions all played roles in dispossession. Methods varied: confiscation, coerced sale, discriminatory taxation, abandoned property rules, and outright removal. Paintings dominate popular memory because they are visible and valuable, but the theft reached much further. Books, archives, Torah scrolls, silver, furniture, and ordinary household possessions. Exact totals remain uncertain. Records were destroyed, borders changed, and many owners were murdered. Experts have often estimated that hundreds of thousands of artworks were displaced or stolen, but any single total must be treated as an estimate. The true scale is measured not only in objects, but in communities whose cultural inheritance was scattered. Scene 8, hidden inside the Reich, time 7:30 to 9:05. As Allied armies advanced, the trail moved towards castles, monasteries, warehouses, and mines inside the collapsing Reich. Repositories were dispersed. Some protected objects from bombing, others concealed the evidence of plunder. At Neuschwanstein, Allied forces found records and vast quantities of stolen cultural property. 39 ERR albums discovered there in 1945 documented confiscated works and later helped with identification and restitution. Elsewhere, investigators entered tunnels stacked with crates. The scale was overwhelming. Objects from different countries and owners, removed under different authorities, were now mixed together. Finding a masterpiece did not answer the most important question: who owned it before the Nazis intervened? That required photographs, transport lists, catalog marks, family testimony, and the records the perpetrators had left behind. Scene 9, who will find